You thief!
I did not mean to offend you.
Take that armor off you, now. And be glad Thunder didn't kick you in that fool head of yours. He's a war horse, not a boy's pony.
I could ride him as well as you.
Close your insolent mouth. I'm a knight, I'll have you know.
You don't look to be a knight.
What, all knights look the same, do they?
No, but they don't look like you either.
Westeros is a rotten, scary world. Dunk is a decent person, and in the Game of Thrones universe, that is quite hard to come by.
Hello there. You the stable boy?
Your belt's made of rope.
This is completely unique from other Game of Thrones series.
It's dirty and it's earthy.
Sir Duncan!
Has courage deserted the houses of Westeros? I will not believe in his soul! And there are no true knights among you!
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. HBO released a couple new Night of the Seven Kingdoms trailers with a ton of new footage and Game of Thrones House of the Dragon Easter eggs, better looks at some of the characters, including some sly shots of them in their armor, and much more book-accurate Kingsguard armor, so we'll break it all down. The real big reminder is that episodes are starting in January. I'll be doing videos for all of them, just like I did for House of the Dragon, just like I do for the original Game of Thrones series, for the upcoming Aegon's Conquest series that we'll see in several years. We'll be getting Game of Thrones series till the heat death of the universe. I can't wait to be 90 years old and still talking about Game of Thrones episodes. Just starting at the beginning of the new footage, this scene is from early on in episode 1, right after Duncan the Tall has met Egg at the inn outside of Ashford as he's heading to the tournament, hoping to compete, thinking that if he wins, one of the lords will take him into their service and he'll be a knight for them. At this point in the story, very early on in episode 1, he doesn't really care which lord, he just wants to be a knight. He doesn't really care where that takes him. He's just buried Sir Arlen and Pennytree by the side of the road. There's a ton of footage of that too, across the trailers, and taken their 3 horses, Thunder, which he mentions during this clip, his horse, the one that he rides all the time, and Chestnut and Sweetfoot are Sir Arlen's horses that he rides. Because it's late at night and he's near the tournament, he stops at an inn to rest them at the stables while he sleeps nearby in the woods because he's trying to conserve money because he has so little money. Like, he basically has almost no money.
Your belt's made of rope.
And as he arrives at the inn here, he runs into Egg, who he just mistakes for the stable boy and thinks that he's the son of the innkeeper. Like, oh, you're the stable boy, take my horses, help them out. As Egg says in this behind-the-scenes trailer, Egg sees this as an opportunity because he wants to also become a knight and a squire, and he sees the tournaments happening nearby, so he just kind of goes along with the lie, not telling Dunk who he really is. They mostly use this early scene to show the comedic energy between the two of them, the precocious young Egg who's extremely educated compared to Dunk, like a small folk, basically. Which is why he's able to call Dunk out at every turn, because he knows pretty much all the greatest knights of the realm. Because he's so highborn and so learned, it's very easy for him to spot a fake, so he can tell that Dunk isn't really a knight. But also the other funny part of this, like on the other side, Dunk is lying to Egg because Dunk is not really a knight, he's pretending to be a knight. Not doing a very good job of lying at it because Dunk is meant to be such a great person. He's like Brienne of Tarth. He's also the ancestor of Brienne of Tarth. But you're meant to get the same vibes from him. Like, imagine Brienne trying to lie. She'd be a terrible liar. Like, it just isn't built into her DNA. So both of them are lying about who they are to each other. I'm assuming by episode 3, maybe like halfway through the series, Dunk finds out, maybe a little bit before that. It won't take that long, but eventually he does learn the truth about who Egg really is. Then there's a ton of new footage and characters, scenes we haven't seen before. They include a lot of footage of George R. R. Martin hyping up the series, the producers, the showrunners of this series too. If it wasn't clear, it's a different team of people making this show than they're making House of the Dragon that made the original Game of Thrones series and the upcoming Aegon's Conquest series. All different teams of people at HBO, with the exception being George R. R. Martin. He is sort of like the one ring of power that binds them all together. One writer to rule them all. But one of the reasons why George R. R. Martin is hyping this series up so much more than he's hyping up House of the Dragon, he complained a lot about House of the Dragon after last season because of all the changes they made, because, as you guessed, Night of the Seven Kingdoms is way more book accurate to what he wrote. Currently there's 3 seasons planned. They might do a 4th season based on material that George R. R. Martin is writing now, but because they're novellas, it's way easier for him to write way quicker. It's not like Winds of Winter where it's like the biggest book that he's ever written. Season 1 is adapting the Hedge Knight. It's only 90 pages long. You could read it in like 2 hours. Like, that's all it takes to read through the entirety of Season 1. Most of the early scenes here in this trailer are at the feast at night early on in the series, the first day of the tournament. Egg sits on Dunk's shoulders as they walk in here just in order to see everything because he is so tall. There's a scene of Lionel Baratheon's squire holding his horned helmet. He frequently competes in tournaments, like he loves competing, and his nickname is the Laughing Storm because he laughs at his opponents as he charges into matches. Most of the interview scenes with the characters seems like they're happening inside Lord Ashford's castle. During the actual episodes, most of the scenes you see Dunk inside the castle here is when he's meeting with Baelor Targaryen and Maekar Targaryen, basically them hauling him in front of the council here.
It's this way.
There are a bunch of new scenes of Dunk in his new armor that Steely Pate forges for him. Also a first look at Steely Pate, the armor, riding on top of thunder as he heads into the Trial of Seven. It looks like they filmed some of the jousting scenes at night too. Then there are a bunch of new scenes of Aegon Targaryen in his dragon armor practicing his swordplay between scenes and during the Trial of Seven. Probably one of the coolest new bits. If you look in the background here, they don't openly call it out, but like you can clearly see it here in the background. Reveal the new Kingsguard armor. Notice it is book accurate white. There's long been artwork depicting it. Across the timeline, Kingsguard usually wore white armor and white cloaks. They called them the White Cloaks. But on the original Game of Thrones series, they changed this, I think because they didn't think they could make the white armor look cool enough on screen at the time. Now they finally can. And you also notice, zoom and enhance, they wear the symbol of the seven-pointed star of the faith on it, not the Targaryen sigil. This is because of how far the Targaryen family has fallen in terms of its relative political power and standing in the realm, in the fact that they have no actual dragons to cow the rest of the great lords into submission. So they're forced to make way more concessions, way more political marriages. This is also why there's so many Targaryens showing up at this backwater little tournament in Ashford, where normally the royal family wouldn't even bother to acknowledge it. Like, oh yeah, sure, have fun at your little tournament, we're not going to bother with it. Basically, during this era of the timeline, the Targaryen family just has to constantly do PR for themselves all across Westeros, making all kinds of concessions to the other great houses. And also, big reveal, in the back right of this frame here, you can actually see Maekar Targaryen in his dragon scale armor too, which is why you know that it's during the Trial of Seven, because he also fights in the Trial of Seven.
It's dirty and it's earthy.
There are a couple scenes of him trying to fit in at the feast here at night, pretending to be a knight, like it just does not fit in at all. Just you see the comedy here, him trying to sit with all the other people, just having fun. At a certain point, he starts dancing with Lionel Baratheon, who takes a liking to him. One of the other things in common that they actually put in the previous trailer, when Lionel Baratheon tells him to be tall, Lionel Baratheon himself is also extremely tall. Part of the idea here, though, is that Dunk starts to make a lot of friends at the tournament, which before he did not have. Like, nobody knows who he is when he shows up. He's a nobody. People are drawn to him because he inspires them through his goodness, in the way that Brienne inspired people with her goodness. They also talk about how that's kind of a weakness in the world of Game of Thrones during the trailer here, and they did during the original series too, like Ned Stark's honor is what killed him. Most of the time in the world of Game of Thrones, being a good person does not reward you. Dunk is meant to be one of the primary examples of how that's not true. When they mention Dunk has a sword, this is actually Sir Arlan's sword. He tries to use Sir Arlan's armor at the tournament, but it's way too small for him, which is why Steely Pate has to forge him new pieces. When the showrunner jokes that Dunk finds he'll need a little more if he wants to be a knight, he's talking about needing allies in the other knights of the lords, mostly because of the Trial of Seven. He needs to make 7 other friends who are willing to potentially die for him in the Trial of Seven. Those are basically the stakes, and he's fighting against Aegon Targaryen, one of the royal princes. So the idea is that he needs to convince 7 other lords to fight against the royal family, essentially, with the idea that if they don't win, they'll die, and if they do win, it means that they might have potentially killed one of the royal princes and potentially other royal family. So it becomes full Anchorman, like things escalate very, very quickly all of a sudden on the show. When the actor playing Egg jokes about Dunk being a horrible knight but showing promise, part of the idea is that Egg uses his knowledge of the realm, the knights in general, as a royal prince. He has an excellent education, to make as many puns as possible, to basically be the savant sports stats person who teaches Dunk how to be a better knight, a more effective knight, and helps point him towards easier wins. Like, look, if you're gonna fight and you want to win, you need to stay away from these people because they're too good. There's no way you're gonna beat them. These people are terrible. You can beat them. Fight them first. Egg is basically Dunk's man in the chair. There are a lot of scenes of them having a rope pull contest with both the knights, the lords, and the squires, basically everybody competing in the tournament, which is why you have like tiny little Egg here on the same team as giant Lionel Baratheon, one of the most powerful lords in the realm. There are a couple of new scenes of them sleeping at night at their campsite just outside the tournament in the woods nearby. Because Dunk doesn't have his own tent, he doesn't have enough money for a full pavilion like the other knights or the other lords competing would have. During the jousting match where they're cheering here, this is Humphrey Beesbury in the bee-looking armor fighting Humphrey Harding. The small folk call this the Battle of Humphrey. The reason why you see this jousting match in particular in all the trailers is because both Humphreys wind up fighting on Dunk's team in the Trial of Seven.
Faced with what it means to be a knight.
There's a very cool muddy Targaryen shield on the tourney field here. This is probably from the Trial of Seven. Most of this seems like it's from the Trial of Seven, like all these battle scenes with everybody in the middle of this muddy battlefield, because so many Targaryens fight during this. We get a much better shot of Lionel Baratheon in his armor without his helm on. Part of what they want to show is the wealth disparity and how much money it costs to actually forge this armor. So all the great lords with all this money are able to make this very elaborate setups for all their horses and themselves, whereas Dunk is basically forced to cobble together what he can from Steely Pate, who tries to make him a much more efficient suit of armor. And that's the whole idea, is that it doesn't look pretty, but it's way more effective than a lot of the great lords' armor that they made more to look pretty than they did to be effective in an actual fight. When you see Dunk on Thunder charging with his jousting lance, this is actually during the Trial of Seven, and the idea is that each team of 7 are rushing at each other, all with their lances at the same time close together. So it's sort of like a battle royale situation with 7 lances charging at 7 other lances with a whole bunch of fog in a muddy battlefield. It is a wonder that more people do not die immediately when this first joust happens, and then after this, after the lances are done, this is where you see Aerion swinging his Morning Star at Dunk. The way the Trial of 7 works is that you and your accuser each have teams of 7, but the actual trial doesn't end until one of you, like the 2 people accusing each other, dies. So even if your entire team dies, as long as you're still alive, the trial still continues on. You have to die. Theoretically, if you wanted to end the trial really quickly, you would just kill one of the accusers first before anybody else winds up dying on either side. But another big idea during this series is that the Trial of 7 hasn't been used in over 100 years. Most of the time when people do trial by combat, it's just the regular trial by combat where it's you one-on-one with someone else. So one of the reasons why Dunk is able to get some help from other people to be on his team is because they're so excited, because it's been so long since anybody has seen a Trial of 7. Then this last scene of Dunk falling to his knees on the tourney field is probably right after the Trial of 7 has ended. Everyone post all your reactions in the comments below, and if there's any Easter eggs or references that you spotted during this that I didn't talk about during this video or my previous videos, just write them below in the comments and I'll add them to my future bonus videos. What'll probably happen in the next couple of weeks, we'll get a couple more clips from the episode, so I'll do videos for that as we get new stuff. Probably the other big reminder is that this week we have new Stranger Things Season 5 episodes for like the next block, new Fallout episodes, and probably more Avengers Doomsday teasers. I will try to do videos for everything that releases, even though it is Christmas week, is like the end of the year and the holidays, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that stuff. Everybody click here for my new House of the Dragon Season 3 trailer for all that brand new footage they just released, and click here for all my Night of the Seven Kingdoms videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.